She was walking her dog, quiet, respectful, on her own property. But when Karen from the HOA marched up with a clipboard and a threat to call security, she had no idea the woman she was confronting didn't just live here. She owned everything behind the gates. And this time, the HOA was about to get a lesson in power, prejudice, and consequences. The sun had just begun to stretch across the manicured lawns of Vaughn Estates, painting gold onto the terracotta roofs and polished window panes. Sprinklers clicked rhythmically, birds dipped between trees, and on the winding sidewalk that curved gently around the community lake, Dr. Celeste Vaughn walked her golden retriever with a quiet grace, a stainless steel coffee tumbler in one hand, leather leash in the other. She moved like someone at peace, no rush, no pretense. Slate blue blazer, tailored jeans, low-heeled boots. Her locks were pinned in a neat chignon, and gold hoop earrings caught the light as she turned to admire a heron skimming the lake surface. She didn't see the woman coming, not at first. "Excuse me," a sharp voice cut through the quiet like broken glass. "Ma'am, can I help you?" Celeste turned slowly. The woman approached with a clipboard tucked against her chest, and a frown that had clearly been practiced. White polo shirt embroidered with Vaughn Estates HOA, beige cap pulled tight, sunglasses perched like a barrier between her and reality. "I'm sorry," Celeste said politely. "Is there an issue?" The woman, Karen, tilted her head like a raptor sizing up prey. "We've had reports of suspicious activity. You don't appear to be a resident here. Can I ask what you're doing in this neighborhood?" Celeste blinked, once, calm. She glanced at her dog, who had sat obediently at her feet. "I'm walking," she replied. "Same as you." Karen didn't smile. "This is a private community. We don't allow outside visitors without proper clearance. Guests need to be registered at the main gate. May I see your ID?" Celeste's fingers tightened slightly around the leash. Her face didn't change, but something in her posture shifted, barely. "I wasn't aware I needed identification to walk my dog." Karen scribbled something onto her clipboard. "Well, rules are rules. We've had issues before, vagrants, loitering, and this neighborhood has standards to uphold." Celeste inhaled slowly through her nose. "Is that so? Are you visiting someone?" Karen pressed. "Because if you're not a homeowner or guest, I'm going to have to notify security." From behind a tall hedge, a curtain fluttered. Someone watching. A man across the street slowed his jog. Celeste said nothing. She wasn't surprised. This wasn't new. The way her presence alone could trigger scrutiny. The leash, the latte, the silence. None of it made her invisible. Karen tapped her pen against the clipboard. "Look, I'm not trying to be rude, but if you can't tell me where you're going, I have to assume you're trespassing." Celeste finally looked her in the eye. "Assume carefully," she said, voice smooth as glass, "because that clipboard won't protect you from the truth." Karen scoffed, missing the storm she'd just summoned. And Celeste, she simply turned back toward the lake. She had designed every inch of this place, and now she was about to redesign something else. The limits of Karen's assumptions. Karen shifted her weight, gripping the clipboard tighter like it was a weapon. Her eyes narrowed beneath her sunglasses, scanning Celeste from head to toe. "First of all," she said, tapping the paper, "that leash looks longer than the regulation 6 feet. We've had incidents." Celeste glanced down. Her dog sat calmly at her heel, leash loose but not dragging, silent, harmless. Karen continued. "And you're not wearing a community lanyard or guest pass. Those are mandatory for non-residents." She flipped to another page. "It's a liability issue. If you're bitten, injured, anything like that, we're responsible." Celeste's expression didn't move. Karen didn't seem to notice or care. "Also, no outside food or drink near the lake walk. That's in the bylaws. Page 12. She gestured at Celeste's coffee tumbler, as if it were contraband. "It attracts ants. We've had complaints." From across the street, a garage door hummed open. A man stood just inside, arms folded, watching. A woman in yoga pants paused her morning jog, earbuds still in, one brow raised. Curtains stirred along the cul-de-sac. Word was traveling. Or maybe it didn't need to. Maybe the scene spoke for itself. "I don't mean to escalate this," Karen said, voice tight, "but I can file a formal report with the HOA. You should know, we've had problems with people sneaking into this neighborhood pretending to be residents. Last month, Someone was caught fishing in the retention pond. Celeste tilted her head slightly. And you think I'm here fishing? Karen flushed. That's not what I said. I'm saying we have to be vigilant. I take my role seriously. I can see that. Karen bristled. I'm going to have to call this in. Celeste didn't move. Her hands remained loose at her sides, one still holding the leash, the other resting near her hip, coffee untouched. She didn't speak. She didn't argue. She let the silence do the heavy lifting. Because sometimes silence isn't surrender, it's strategy. Karen, mistaking stillness for compliance, raised her phone and turned away slightly. Yes, hi, this is Karen Daniels, HOA compliance chair. I have an individual, refusing to identify herself near lot 38, possibly trespassing. Yes, female, mid-30s, black, walking a dog, no visible credentials. Celeste's eyes didn't leave her. Another curtain drew back. A teen across the lake lifted his phone, camera angled just right. Karen turned back. They're sending someone. I'll wait with you until they arrive. Celeste finally spoke, voice even. You've documented quite a few things. Karen nodded, satisfied. It's my job. Celeste took one step closer, not threatening, steady. And when this is reviewed, Karen raised her chin. It'll be obvious who didn't belong here. Celeste's gaze didn't waver. You're absolutely right. And the irony, it hadn't even started sinking in yet. Karen's foot tapped. Her clipboard now hung like dead weight at her side, the tip of her pen twitching. She was waiting impatiently for security, for someone to confirm what she already believed to be true, that she was right, that this woman didn't belong here. Celeste adjusted her grip on the leash. Her dog yawned, bored. Then, without raising her voice, she spoke. What's your full name? Karen blinked. Excuse me. Your name, your position, and your credentials. Karen's mouth parted, confused. I'm Karen Daniels, HOA compliance chair, elected 2 terms. I enforce community standards. And those standards give you authority to detain residents on a sidewalk. Karen scoffed. I didn't detain anyone. I'm simply asking you to prove you're allowed to be here. It's protocol. Celeste nodded slightly. Thank you. Karen raised an eyebrow. For what? For making your assumptions official. Celeste reached into her coat pocket, and slowly, without flourish, removed a slim black leather wallet. Inside, nestled between 2 cards, was a key fob, glossy, metallic, etched with a logo only a handful of people in the country had ever held in their hands. The Vaughn living crest. Celeste held it out just enough for Karen to see. The woman squinted. What is that? A developer access pass. Celeste said calmly. Level 1 authorization. Grants access to all Vaughn Estates properties, gates, and model units, including the ones that haven't been listed yet. Karen stared. A flicker of doubt cracked through her confidence, but she clung to protocol like a raft. Well, anyone could make something like that. That doesn't prove anything. Celeste nodded again. Slow. You're right. She pulled her phone from her other pocket and tapped a few times. Karen watched with thinly veiled suspicion as Celeste opened an app, turned the screen, and held it out. The homeowner registry. At the very top of the screen, next to development founder and master deed holder, was a name in bold. Dr. Celeste Vaughn. Karen didn't speak, and just to be thorough, Celeste continued, voice like silk over stone. You can check county records, title registration, even the HOA's own formation documents. My name's on every single one. Karen's mouth opened, closed, then settled into a tight line. You should have said something earlier. Celeste took a step forward. I was giving you the chance to lead with respect, not reaction. Behind them, someone muttered under their breath. A phone camera lowered, another window shut, quietly. Karen crossed her arms again, but they didn't feel like armor anymore. Look, I didn't know. That's the problem, Celeste said. You didn't ask. The leash slackened as her dog rose beside her. Celeste slipped the keycard back into her pocket. Karen stood frozen, clipboard clutched tighter now, not like a badge, like a shield. But it was already too late. She had written her assumptions in ink, and now the ink was drying in public. The community center was buzzing, plastic chairs in rows, pitchers of lemon water sweating on folding tables, and the faint smell of pastries someone thought would soften policy talks. Karen walked in like she owned the room, clipboard tucked under one arm, phone in the other, heels clicking with purpose. She didn't nod at the residents already seated. She didn't notice the hushed conversations, or the glances that followed her through the doorway. Her focus was singular: the incident. Her report. She was ready to make it official, on record. Non-compliance confrontation, sidewalk dispute, security involvement recommended. The meeting came to order. Karen sat front row, shoulders squared. The board members shuffled papers, a few eyes darting toward the entrance. Something was coming. They knew. Karen didn't. The community director tapped the mic. "Before we begin tonight's agenda, we have a special presentation." He cleared his throat. "We're honored to be joined by the founder of Vaughn Living Communities, the very visionary who designed this neighborhood from the ground up, Dr. Celeste Vaughn." The air shifted. Karen blinked. Murmurs rose behind her. Chairs creaked. A few phones tilted discreetly for video. And then heels. Not loud. Not rushed. Just sure. Celeste entered the room with quiet elegance. A navy suit, crisp blouse, hair pulled back. She walked without apology, without hesitation, and stepped up to the podium, like she'd done it 1,000 times. Because she had. Karen's face paled. Her clipboard slipped slightly against her lap. The screen behind Celeste flickered to life. Title slide: Vaughn Living Communities, redesigning neighborhoods with purpose and equity. The silence was louder than any applause. Celeste scanned the room. Her voice, when it came, was calm and unwavering. "I created Vaughn Estates as more than just a housing development. It was meant to be a community, built on inclusion, respect and dignity, not just in bylaws, but in behavior." Karen stared forward, motionless. Celeste continued, "I've been reviewing recent HOA interactions, watching how power is exercised, how assumptions are made, and how silence often enables both." She didn't name names. She didn't have to. The room knew. Everyone knew. Karen shifted in her seat, throat tight. Celeste turned a page in her notes. "We'll be implementing revisions to board training, including equity leadership modules and anonymous reporting systems. Effective immediately." Someone clapped. Just one person at first. Then another, and another. Karen didn't move. Celeste met her gaze just once. No malice, no mockery, just clarity. It wasn't revenge. It was restoration. And as Celeste stepped down from the podium, the applause followed her. Not because of what she said, but because of what she'd revealed. The developer hadn't just returned. She'd reclaimed the narrative. Karen tried to write without permission. The room hadn't settled. Even after Celeste stepped down, the air stayed charged, like something sacred had just been named out loud. No one reached for the lemon water. No one looked at the pastries. All eyes remained forward. The board chair cleared his throat. Twice, then looked at Celeste like a student, waiting for permission to speak. She gave a small nod. He turned to the crowd. "Before we move on, we'd like to address the incident brought to our attention earlier this week." Karen stiffened. The chair continued, carefully. "Dr. Vaughn was approached by a member of our HOA while walking within her own development. We've reviewed the footage, the complaints, and the reports submitted." Whispers rippled. A few heads turned Karen's way. Her clipboard had vanished from her lap. "This is not about punishing a moment," the chair added. "It's about acknowledging a pattern." Celeste sat silently in the front row, hands folded. She hadn't raised her voice once. She hadn't made a demand, but her presence made it impossible to look away. A younger board member spoke next. "We're proposing immediate changes, quarterly anti-bias training for all board members, including compliance officers, creation of an equity subcommittee to handle future grievances, and revised language in our bylaws to ensure no resident is ever made to prove their right to exist here." Someone in the back exhaled, audibly. Another board member, older, leaned into his mic. "It's also our recommendation that the compliance chair position be vacated, effective tonight. In light of the events, and in the interest of community trust." All eyes swung to Karen. She looked stunned, and then defensive. There was no intent." Celeste didn't move. She didn't need to. The vote was called. Hands went up, one by one, then all at once. Unanimous. Karen stood slowly. No protest, just silence. Her cheeks flushed, her voice small. I apologize. To Dr. Vaughn, to the community. I understand now that. Celeste stood. Karen stopped speaking. Celeste didn't interrupt. She didn't lecture. She simply walked toward the podium once more, pausing beside the woman who had tried to erase her with a clipboard. Our neighborhoods, Celeste said softly, are defined not by fences, but by how we treat the people inside them. She turned to the room. This isn't about me. It's about making sure no one else has to shrink to fit into a space they helped build. Applause rose. Slow, steady, and this time, real, not performative. Relieved. Because something had shifted, not just a vote, not just a policy. A truth had been named. And for the first time in a long time, the neighborhood finally exhaled. The camera panned wide, across the quiet curves of Vaughn Estates, sunlight dancing off the lake just behind the row of pristine homes. Birds coasted on the breeze. The sidewalk where it all began was empty, except for one woman standing calmly beside her dog, blazer sharp, posture steady. Dr. Celeste Vaughn. A small microphone was clipped to her lapel. Beside her, a reporter held a notepad, but barely glanced at it. The story didn't need embellishment. It had already gone viral. Clips of the HOA incident, viewed millions of times, reshared with captions like "Grace in the face of gatekeeping" and "Power redefined." Behind them, a new addition to the neighborhood had been unveiled. A black granite plaque, polished smooth, mounted just beside the wrought iron gates. Vaughn Estates founded with vision, built on equity. The reporter spoke first. Dr. Vaughn, you didn't press charges. You didn't demand a public resignation. You simply restructured the board and walked away. Why? Celeste didn't smile. Not because she wasn't proud, but because this wasn't a victory lap. I wasn't there to punish anyone, she said quietly. I was there to correct something that's been normalized for far too long. The dog at her side sat patiently, leash resting loose in her hand. The reporter nodded. The moment went viral. But the policies you've introduced since, equity training, community feedback channels, bylaw revisions, they've already started showing up in other neighborhoods. Did you expect that kind of ripple effect? Celeste glanced toward the plaque. I designed this community to be a model, not just for real estate, but for how people live with one another. That means we don't just build homes, we build standards. A beat, wind rustled the trees. I didn't need permission to walk that sidewalk, she added, her voice low. I created it. I paved it. I planted the trees beside it. So no one, especially not someone with a clipboard and assumptions, gets to tell me where I do or don't belong. The camera lingered on her face. Calm, certain. This wasn't about me being allowed to stay, she continued. It was about making sure the next woman like me doesn't have to explain herself in the first place. The reporter's voice softened. What do you want people to take away from all of this? Celeste exhaled slowly, gaze steady. That legacy isn't about buildings or bylaws. It's about the kind of space you leave behind for others. I didn't build Vaughn Estates so I could live comfortably. I built it so others like me wouldn't have to earn their belonging. It should be assumed. Behind her, the plaque shimmered in the morning sun. No permission needed, just vision, and a blueprint the world could finally see. If this story moved you, if you've ever witnessed quiet dignity clash with loud ignorance, then it's time to stand for something greater. Share this video. Start a conversation. Let this be the moment we stop mistaking power for posture and start recognizing leadership in its truest form. Subscribe to Black Roots for more true-to-life stories, where justice is reclaimed, dignity is defended, and silence is transformed into strength. Because belonging shouldn't be questioned, it should be built into the foundation.